Which is cooler, giant butterfly wings or sparkly rhinestone butterfly shoes? We are gonna find out by the end of this video. This video was delayed by a bit because I finally caught the plague and got a concussion. And also, I have this thing! Let me tell you, those three things do not go together. It was bad. In my last video, I introduced our new little gentleman, but I did not tell you his name. Everyone, I would like to introduce Sky, our new Stormy Sky puppy. He is currently 4 months old yesterday, and he lost his first 2 teeth yesterday. Also, he is supposed to be between 18 and 22 pounds, and he is currently 21. It's gonna be a bit bigger than expected. Actually, his paw prints fit in Judah's paw print, so. I was really looking forward to starting with the shoes, because I've really wanted to rhinestone stuff for a while. However, I only use E6000 outside, and we currently have the remnants of a hurricane, so we'll start with the dress.
The first step was to distract Sky in his sewing room playpen after this happened last time. I'm using a secondhand Butterick 6991. Picture this and save it for later. This pattern was already cut out in my size, so I cut it out from, I think this is black bridal satin. Bridal satin meaning not so shiny, not for a wedding dress. So the story about the 2 things from the intro is that we went to a crowded county fair, and when we got home, I smashed my head into a door frame while trying to feed the puppy, and a few days later I started coughing, still concussed, not fun. For the lining, or the corselet as the pattern calls it, I used a monarch butterfly quilting cotton. I've always loved them, including painting this one on my bedroom wall in high school. And I tried growing milkweed this year so I could raise monarch caterpillars for this video, but it did not work, so instead I got painted lady caterpillars, and we are going to watch them grow together. Back to me metamorphizing into a butterfly. I ironed all the pieces and set aside the black ones as I'm starting with the lining. I marked the boning placement lines in the front and the side back pieces and pinned grosgrain ribbon on top and stitched both sides to form a channel. Ooh, look at the new butterfly pajama pants I sewed, especially for this video and not because someone has been eating all of them. I pinned the corselet pieces together and double-checked the seam allowance before stitching them together. I ironed my seams open before folding the bottom edge over and hemming it. I added my custom tag, added some plastic boning, and boom! Ready for the fun stuff. I have 2 different sequin laces here, and I think this one is more intricate, but they are the same color sequin, so I can use them both. So I think I'm going to do this one on the center, and then this one for the rest of the pieces. Also, this was on clearance at Joann's, and I got 2 yards of it for $10 total. I carefully aligned the center of the lace with the center of the pattern piece and pinned it in place. I roughly cut it for now. I did the same with the other lace and the rest of the satin pieces, except that I lined up the waist marks with a specific spot on the lace so it would look uniform. Also, using both laces was a good plan because centering each one wasted a lot of fabric and 2 yards would not have been enough. I machine basted the lace on until I broke a needle, except that I was expecting this and was prepared. But my eyeballs aren't the only ones in this room, so I decided to hand baste the rest of the panels and do a lot of vacuuming. Sequins are so pretty but so annoying. Time to pin it all together! I left pins on the alignment marks so it was easy to line the pieces up. And now it's time to sew, but I am definitely still wearing my safety glasses. I like my eyeballs. I'm not pulling the fabric here, just helping to guide it since it was getting stuck under the presser foot. For the center back, I sewed here normally, but basted the top section. Also, I don't normally sew over pins as you can break needles. Ask me how I know. But I'm already wearing safety glasses. I believe I did the same thing on my last sequin dress. I stitched the edges of the back slit down since I had already serged the edges. Time for a zipper! I can't iron the sequins, so I flattened the seam allowance and pinned the zipper centered on that seam. I unpicked that seam, and let me tell you,
this is so much easier on non-sequin fabric.
I basted the zipper down and did a fit check, and after one quick adjustment, I serged the edges to control the sequin shedding. I serged the bottom edge too before hemming it. And I finally remembered that I had to sew the zipper in! I generally prefer invisible zippers, but not with sequins. I pinned the corselet in without remembering that I had messed up the camera settings to show those pretty sequins. That looks bad here, but it's fine in real life. I stitched up the upper edge and understitched it so that the lining wouldn't show, and broke another needle. I hand sewed the corselet into the zipper and tacked down the seam allowance to the dress, and ta-da! It's done! The sparkles on this are so great, and I'm very happy with the pattern matching on these parts. Now that the dress is done, let's check in on my butterflies. They are growing nicely and getting nice and fat for the chrysalis stage. With the dress done, I can start the shoes tomorrow. Except we had more rain.
It is finally not raining, which means now I can do the shoes. I took the sections of a butterfly and sort of imposed it on a picture of the shoes.
I carefully cut out the orange parts with a craft knife. I have a history of slicing my finger with this thing, but not today. I'm sure a more talented artist could have fitted the butterfly to the shoe shape better, but that is not the kind of art that I enjoy. I used metallic Sharpie to trace the shapes because it's the only marking tool I could get to actually show up. I used bronze for the orange and silver for white. And I started it by gluing my sneaker back together because I am not buying new shoes while I have a puppy. They keep bounding gleefully around my house, and new ones would just be a waste of money. I used a toothpick to smear E6000 on the orange patches and a wax rhinestone pen to place the crystals. I decided to do all of the orange parts first. I feel so dumb for getting a concussion while trying to feed the puppy. I mean, I've had some really dumb injuries like dislocating my ankle while laying on the couch or this, but I think this one takes the cake. My first concussion, I was at least doing something mildly dangerous, so there's some dignity in that. But aren't these shoes starting to look lovely? There's just something fun about sparkly shoes. My first pair was so much fun, I had to do it again. Wait, no. These are my first pair. It's the next day now, and I can go about doing the other orange side of the shoes. And, in case you're wondering why he's very wet. Oh, hi buddy. Oh, thank you. This is what happened. He really likes the hose. While Sky took a damp nap inside, I went back out on the balcony and did the orange on the other side of the shoes. From this angle, everything seems to be going very well, but I was sitting in direct sun and sweating so much. Luckily, I can do something about that. After drying off and reassuring the doggies, I started rhinestoning the rest of the shoe in the shade, which was a much better idea. I had a hard time differentiating where I had already placed black rhinestones and where was just plain black shoe. And yes, these are thrifted shoes, and I should probably remove that now. Butterfly break! I left the heel part of my Ursula shoes bare, but they were super plasticky, and these are the same material all over, so more rhinestones! I really just spent hours sitting outside gluing rhinestones on, but it's okay because I'm listening to A Storm of Swords, aka Book 3 in the Game of Thrones series, and I made Game of Thrones shorts, and the flannel said this, and yeah, I should hope not. Just kidding, of course. I know why it really says that. Hello, neighbor. But as boring as watching me glue for hours is, it is so worth it! Look at that sparkle. I was gonna go work on the shoes this morning, and outside of course, because it's E6000, but they are pumping the septic tank a couple houses upwind from us, so I'm gonna stay inside and do something else for a while. Later that afternoon, I made a repair and eventually noticed the missing iris. Then I kept on rhinestoning until disaster struck and I ran out of rhinestones. So I went for a bike ride and saw an actual monarch butterfly. The next day we had more rain, so I made a reticule from the dress scraps. And it was still rain the next day, so I made dog costumes. It was supposed to be Sky, the tiny puppy, was the caterpillar, and then Emmy was the chrysalis, but while I was recovering from my concussion, he grew a ton, and he is currently at his full, quote-unquote, predicted size, at 4.5 months. So he's going to be huge. And then, someone who shall remain nameless snuck back into the room and knocked my paint water over, spilling all of it all over the caterpillar costume, my rug, and my Cinderella dress. Sigh. Finally, it's not raining and I have more rhinestones, so I can finally finish the shoes. The nameless klutz, who definitely still has a green foot, knocked the paint water over and then freaked out and ran through my palette, and now my rug is green. And I had to repaint the caterpillar costume. And done! Time for a butterfly update. They are turning into chrysalises, and I spent 2 days trying to get this shot, so please admire it. Now that the butterflies have formed their chrysalises, I have 7 to 10 days to make the wings. I have a roll of 120-inch long organza, 3.5 yards, no, 7 yards? 7 yards, and 7 yards, which is approximately 3.5 by 3.5 yards per wing. I got this at the secondhand craft shop, so it was $2 a yard for double the width, and unfortunately, this is where the problem comes in, because this is polyester, and my plan for dyeing it was to use wax resist on the parts of the butterfly wing that need to be white, and dye the entire thing orange and then go over it with black. However, this is polyester, which needs to be dyed at a very high temperature, and I'm pretty sure the wax is gonna melt, so I have a little bit of testing to do today. Forgot to mention the first constraint on size was initially how long of a pole I could get to hold the wings up, but then I found a tent at the thrift store, so I'm gonna use the length that these poles will let me be and also can hold up. But this is one of those exploding tents, so I am going to open this when I go outside and not in my sewing room. I went to saw off the tent poles, but clearly the tent was very interesting, so I got some bribery. Wow, I did not know he bumped the camera there. Anyway, I removed the tent poles without assistance, and ta-da! Giant wing poles! Also, I complained a lot about how big my Cinderella dress was, so naturally I'm making even bigger wings. But I'll be able to walk through doors. It has been 3 days, so the chrysalises are ready to move to the tent. I need to watch him with the tripod, but his current nickname is Chaos. Time to dye! I mean, time to dye the fabric. And after a very uneventful half an hour, I spread it out on the deck to dry. I was trying to avoid crunchy paint, so I'm hoping to use dye instead. My plan for tracing the wings is to use this mini projector, but the last time I plugged it in, it started smoking, so I'm going to try this outside. That was a complete fail. It didn't work at all, so on to plan B and some ironing. Lots and lots of ironing. Plan B is to put a grid on top of the wing that I want to copy, and I can scale those squares up to my wing size and draw the grid and the intersections of the wing and grid so I can approximately draw it out. Also, it was clean and refill the puppy pool day. Also, I swear this boy's a millennial because he is obsessed with his avocado toast. He prances around with it every day and takes it to bed most nights, and unfortunately for me, it is a crinkly toy. So we all know nothing is ever easy with a puppy, but he had a great time helping until I bribed him to let me work, and eventually I got my grid drawn out. I started drawing the butterfly by marking the intersecting points from the grid and removed paper from his mouth, and got back to drawing with a battery-powered dog toy, apparently. I also marked the inside lines, and it's a little hard to see the lines, so I went over them with a Sharpie, and ta-da! Ready for fabric! And here's where the problem started. The problem otherwise known as Sky. So he got booted outside, and then my fabric stayed still so I could actually trace it. I used the Sharpie again to line the black parts. So you might be wondering if Emmy enjoys having a little brother, and the answer is definitely not. She liked being an only child, but with the magic of editing, I can make it seem like they get along. See? I told ya. I think things will get better when he stops biting and attacking her. Time to release Chaos! This time I distracted him with his giant bear. I don't know if the bear enjoyed this part, but it didn't complain. Oh my gosh, I came down for breakfast and I thought, oh, I'd check my butterflies. I have a butterfly! It looks like it just came out. This is so exciting. One by one, the rest emerged from their chrysalises, which was so cool to watch. Look at their wings drying out. And this one was testing its proboscis for the first time, so I guess it's feeding time. Look how pretty. Also, the red stuff is not blood, it's just left over after the metamorphosis. Speaking of flying things... I found a listing on Facebook Marketplace for a gigantic box full of ball pit balls, and since I have a puppy who's chomping through everything, I thought it would be a good thing to buy, you know, lifetime supply of balls. But I didn't tell Patrick about it because he would have said not to, because he's boring like that. So instead, here's a video of my mom and I smuggling it in the house and almost getting busted. Okay, back to butterflies. To color the black parts, I tested black dye on a scrap, but it hardly showed up at all, so I bought some textile ink that I eventually applied with a sponge, And also it worked great, but had some issues with the wind blowing before it dried, and also it bled kind of a lot, and made a huge mess. I feel like I should have built a silkscreen frame for this. I drew on circles for the white parts, but it really bled a lot. But overall I'm happy with it. Until I ran out of ink. So I guess I'm done for the day. Otherwise, it is looking pretty darn good. I think if I buy 2 bottles, because this was all 1 bottle and I got a wing and a half, so if I buy 2 more bottles I should be able to finish the other wing in this one. But it's looking pretty good.
Oh my gosh, I just got back from a jet ski ride with a friend and we saw not 1 but 2 bald eagles. And one of them stared at me for a minute and then dove for a fish, came back up and flew into a tree. So I assume it caught a fish, but that was really cool. It finally happened. Today I was testing a pattern for Nikki Blackwell and not working on my butterfly thing because I don't have ink yet. And I sat on a pin. I don't recommend it, that was not fun. And then I slathered myself in sunscreen and we're gonna go for a paddle boat ride now, so no more pins.
After getting more ink, I started on the second wing. I wanted to get the bulk of the work done first before finishing the first wing, which I totally forgot to film, but it was uneventful. Okay, they are both done. There is quite the difference between this one bled a lot and this one didn't. Oh, there's a spider on my camera. I'm hoping if I leave this one for the same amount of time that I left this one, then it'll bleed about the same. And then I'll rinse it out and hang them up to dry. I could not get the orange or black out of the fabric, so I went with fabric paint for the white parts. I started painting it on an old drop cloth, which took some of the old paint up with it, so I switched to a faux silkscreen method where I pinned it to my table and there was nothing behind it. When it was dry, I trimmed the excess fabric and did a doubled fold hem around the entire gigantic circumference of both wings. Well, almost all of them. I didn't hem where the tent poles will go. For those, I cut 3.5-inch wide bias tape from the rest of the black dress satin. Did you forget about that part? Because I did. I blame the puppy for that. I stitched the bias strips ends together to become one giant strip that I stitched on the wing from here to here, because I can't fit this whole wing and frame in my sewing room. I ironed the seam up and pinned the rest of it like the non-giant form of bias tape and stitched it down. I also tapered the end so it would be flush with the hem.
With the wings done, I have 1 poll left to do on Instagram, which is, do I put rhinestones on the wings or not? So I will check back in tomorrow and see what the results are.
While waiting for that, I made sure the poles would support the weight. Also, holy cow, I'm glad I sized these down slightly.
It is the next day now, and it's time to check the poll results. And the results are 2 people voted for no rhinestones, and 42 people voted for rhinestones, so guess it's time to do some rhinestoning.
My assistants are slacking off already. Let's get to it! Was this the most expensive thing I've ever made? If you include that my laptop died and I had to buy a new one, then yes. But if not, then it's still this one. everyone, thanks for watching. It is now time to release my butterfly friends. Oh, look at it. I guess while we're waiting for the butterfly to leave, let me know if you liked the wings or the shoes better. I really like the wings, but the shoes just came out so awesome, so I know where my vote is. And if you learn... oh, bye! So I guess I want to say happy crafting and watch out for door frames. They will jump out and get you. Oh, there we go. Bye everybody! Sky, no! No! I got it back. He did not kill it. It seems fine. He really likes bugs, so... I'm sorry, little butterfly. How often do you find a caterpillar onesie at the thrift store the week you finish your butterfly costume?